Baseball's great. It's pretty hard to beat. But what we got going on here at Off the Bat is better than baseball. So go ahead and listen in because we managed to get more great guests for you guys. Thanks for being such a great community and always supporting this podcast. We, of course, are still podcasting, but ran into some trouble finding more awesome guests. Before I go on, I hope you're all doing well. Times right now are odd and are definitely not normal. As long as we all work to get past this pandemic, this will be gone faster than Nate Pearson's fastball. Seat up, grab some peanuts and Cracker Jacks, and trust me, it won't be a shame. Moving on to the topic of today's podcast, which is our interview. So Josh, I actually want to let you introduce yourself because that's probably going to be easier for you than it would for me. So can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Josh Roenicke. I am from Northern California, live in Florida now though, and playing in Taiwan currently.
What was your background? What was it like before getting into baseball?
I was actually born into baseball. So I was born in '82 in Baltimore, Maryland, and my dad was actually with the Baltimore Orioles in the big leagues at the time. So from day one, it was in my blood, professional baseball from the get-go, and was born there. At 3 years old, we moved to Northern California. And, I started playing at 5 years old. So I guess I'm almost 38, almost 33 years of playing. But like I said, it was a part of my my life from the very beginning. And it's been quite the journey. And I'm very, very fortunate to have been playing my 15th season professionally. And, I just don't want to take it for granted and enjoying being out here and playing in Taiwan where, the whole COVID never really happened. And so we've been very fortunate to be the first baseball in the entire world playing in April when we started. So it's been quite the year so far.
Every single player has a different story about getting drafted. Do you have any?
Yeah, mine's actually very interesting. So, in high school I played baseball, basketball, and football all 4 years. Loved football and basketball more than I actually liked baseball, but baseball was in my blood from the beginning, and I always played it and planned on playing it for as long as I could. So I went to UCLA mainly for football. That was my love and what I thought I would pursue. Planning on playing baseball there as well. And my first year there, I played only football, but I redshirted. And then the next 2 years, I played baseball and football combined. And I wasn't really getting much playing time in either of them. And I realized that football was not going to work out. So I quit football after my third year, focused on only baseball. And at that time I was an outfielder. My first couple of years, I was the defensive replacement. UCLA was a big school, and we had a lot of guys who were highly recruited. And I was kind of on the bench a little bit. And I took over the starting center fielder job my junior year of baseball. And that was my fourth year of college, Joe. So I was ready to leave. I told everyone, I said, if I get drafted, I don't care what round, I'm going. I've already been in college for 4 years, and I actually did not get drafted that year. Went back for my fifth year, my redshirt senior year, and I told John Savage, the coach there, I said, I'd like to throw out of the bullpen. I pitched a little bit in high school. I can eat up innings if we need to, but I think I can help us out. And so I was starting center fielder, and in fall ball, he had me start throwing out of the pen, and I had a good arm, was throwing well, and became the setup closer that year in 2006, and was actually coming from center field to the mound to face certain guys, and I'd go back to center field sometimes. And I had a good arm, like I said, and the Cincinnati Reds drafted me in the 10th round as a pitcher only. So at that time, it was the first time in my life that I could not only focus on one sport, but I was focusing on one position in one sport. And right away, I went with it and I was excited about it. Put all my effort into it, and actually, I climbed through the ranks pretty quick and got to the big leagues in '08, being drafted in '06. So it was quite the turn of events, going from not sure if I was going to get drafted to getting drafted and getting to the big leagues in a hurry.
Well, yeah, the uncertainty between switching from far outfield to the mound, especially in your last year of college, you're hoping to get drafted. This is the last straw, and it looks like it went successfully for you, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So many fans consider the no DH rule in the National League, like in the MLB, a huge part of baseball because to the fans, nothing beats the thrill of a pitcher hitting a home run or even just a singular hit. DHs were implemented into the NL as a way to prevent injuries to pitchers in the 2020 and 21 seasons. As a pitcher that's pitched both in the AL and the NL, do you believe the MLB should keep the DH after 2021 or get rid of it?
Um, it's like you said, it's hard for me. I played for Minnesota and Toronto, and then I played for Cincinnati and Colorado, and so I've had experience in both. And I mean, I get it. It's as a pitcher, it's nice to face another pitcher, and even when I was hitting as a pitcher in the big leagues, it's tough, man. So they always say the AL's tougher because of that. You're facing a DH who's one of the best hitters in the league or on the team, and it's not that easy out. And a lot of times you can, and now they always talk about turning the lineup over. So you want to get that pitcher up to bat, because the next inning, if that's a third out, you get the top of the lineup up. So it's definitely harder to pitch in the AL because of that, I think. But I think what they're doing, it makes sense to either you go full in on one or the other. Either both leagues have the DH or neither leagues have the DH. So I'm on board whatever their decision is, but I can see how people fight against it, because it's tougher facing that big DH instead of a pitcher who's, I guess if they get a base hit, it's kind of on the lucky side, except for a couple.
Yeah, so for the players, it's pretty much divided because a lot of the players want to see different things, but the fans obviously want to keep the pitchers hitting because it's something entertaining to see. And then the league and the owners are like, we don't want to get our pitchers hurt. So it is this big argument, and there is really uncertainty to this topic past 2021. My question to you is, how harmful could an at-bat really be for a pitcher?
I don't think that would be the reason why. I think, baseball nowadays, it's kind of looked at as being a slow-paced game, and games take a while, and the more runs scored, the more excitement. So I think it'd be more on the excitement part and more runs being scored instead of that easy out with a pitcher come up to bat. I mean, I had times where I was coming up with the bases loaded, and our coach said, if you get up to bat with the bases loaded, you just take and strike out, because they don't want double play. So I can see how it seems like maybe it's about the injury, but I think it'd be more about the runs being scored in the game and the more excitement for the game.
Well, yeah, that is one thing that the MLB is working towards, trying to either shorten the game or make it more entertaining. So, yeah, I do see your point, and I really never thought about it like that. So that is something new that you've really, I guess, taught me in the first 10 minutes, is it? Yeah, about that. Okay, so you're playing in the CPBL, the Chinese Pro Baseball League, is that?
Correct. It's played in Taiwan, or
Yeah, so I'm curious,
title.
I'm curious because I do see like a few players in the league that are American. So, like, what are the main languages spoken there?
It's Chinese. I mean, so Chinese or Mandarin is the primary language, but Taiwanese is also a language in itself, which I guess would be similar to, how Spanish in Mexico or in Spain are the same language but different in terms. So it's Chinese that would be the primary language.
Yeah. So, do you speak Chinese or no?
I mean, I know some things that get by, or some, funny things, but I can't really put a sentence together, and I definitely can't understand it or write it, because the writing is very difficult. I think English and Chinese are the two hardest languages in the world to learn. So, I mean, I'm going slowly and just kind of learning a couple things here and there.
So this brings me to my next question. So I remember there was a reliever on the Red Sox who had his own translator brought around with him. Is there like a team translator? Because I know there's another American on your team, right?
We have, each team gets three imports, which most of them, they're almost always pitchers, and they're mostly American. But yeah, we have a translator who he's usually just at the field with us. So he'll go to the mound when the catcher comes out, or in the dugout and stuff. But I think some of the guys, like you said, with Boston, who go to the States, they have their guys at their hip at all times.
Urihara, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, he was a setup guy or closer for them. I remember him. But it's different. I think they have their guys, at all times, no matter where they go. We're kind of on our own out here until we go to the field.
Yeah, so in the CPBL, there are 4 teams from what I've researched. And are there any former MLB or minor league players that are playing alongside you?
Yeah, I mean, most of the guys that come over here from the States have big league time or higher up in the minor leagues. I mean, we had Logan Darnell. He just left to go home and have a baby, but he played in the big leagues. Ryan Fearbend on my team played in the big leagues. Last year, we had Ryan Verdugo, who got to the big leagues. Austin Bivens-Dirks, he played in the big leagues. One of the teams out here had Esmiel Rogers, who played in the big leagues. Ariel Miranda also played in the big leagues. So it's kind of like Mexico is very similar. A lot of guys, the States are kind of going younger. So a lot of guys that can't really get on teams out there because of age-wise or have been there and didn't do well, they're starting to come out here, Mexico. So we get a lot of guys that have been to very high levels.
Okay, so on to our next question. So we've been speaking a lot about coaching on the podcast. We hosted Matt Antonelli, Rachel Balkovic, and we also do have a bunch more coaches who are waiting for their turn to be a guest. Coaches deserve much more recognition than they're given from the fans' view. They work hours after hours to try and make their team as best and happy as it could possibly be. Throughout your career in baseball, who would you say were the most influential coaches that really helped you along your journey?
Off the top of my head, I would say Tom Brown with the Reds. I think he's still in the organization now, but I had him in 2007, my first full season of pro ball and my first full season of being a pitcher only. And he was old school, but he got his point across and knew what he was talking about. He had a good career, was a great pitcher, and he just put it in a way where you would listen to him. When he spoke, he didn't speak all the time, didn't raise his voice all the time, but when he spoke, you listened, and he always had good things and knew how each pitcher should be talked to. And I had a good arm back then, and he'd tell me, like, you're different than these guys. You got to do this and that. And I listened, and it helped me big time. I had a good year that year, and I kind of flew up the minor leagues. But he off the top of my head, he's one that sticks out.
Yeah, so you said how your first full year of pitching, so I'm now curious, did you end up playing center field in the minors ever?
No, I wish. I mean, I heard the Dodgers wanted to draft me to do both, to play outfield and then be a reliever as well, which would have been awesome because I haven't heard too many guys doing that. But I wasn't a great hitter in college. I was really good defensively, and I took pride in that. And I'm assuming they saw that, and I would have loved to have an opportunity to have 400 or 500 at bats in a season and see what I could do as a hitter, because, in college you're playing 60 games. And I was, with school and also pitching, I wasn't taking it as seriously as I should, but I would like that challenge to see what I could have done.
Okay, so I guess now that we're speaking a little more about coaching, I'm assuming you had to your pitching method evolved as you moved along from being drafted to moving to the majors, and now I guess to the CPBL. So, like, what are some of the biggest, I guess, developments and I guess like things you had to change about your pitching to bring you where you are now?
Well, with me, I got drafted as a reliever. I was a closer through the minor leagues, getting up to the big leagues, and I was still a one-inning guy, and kind of got in that long relief role with Colorado and Minnesota in the big leagues. And then, right-handed relievers, if you're not throwing 100, you're kind of a dime a dozen. So I started getting, weeded out slowly but surely. And then in 17, Mexico called and wanted me to be a starter, because I actually started in a little in 14 and 15 with the Brewers in AAA and had some success. That was a tough league. I was in Colorado Springs. But 17 was the first year of my career. I went into spring training as a starter and started the whole year. And so just, learning myself as a starter was a big adjustment. And, I honestly, I wish I would have done it early on, because there's so much more value as a starter. But just knowing that, walks don't quite matter as much. You can kind of pitch backwards with the guys. You go 2-0. I'd always throw a fastball no matter what when I was a closer or reliever. And a lot of times, guys are sitting dead red, and no matter how hard you throw 2-0, they're hitting that fastball. But as a starter, you throw a breaking ball, change up, slider in there, 2-0, and just kind of pitch backwards more and keep them on their heels and not worry about walks. And, you got to go 100 pitches and you're not letting it loose. You're just kind of trying to fill up the zone and get bad contact and miss barrels.
Oh, I did not know that you actually played as a starter, which is something new.
Yeah, my fourth year as a starter.
So many players like to reflect back on their careers, and obviously yours isn't done, but if you were able to tell your past self something at any point in your life, what would you tell yourself?
Baseball related,
Anything. Anything.
man. I mean, if I with baseball, I would say just try to slow the game down. You know, we're all confident going in, but then the game speeds up a lot of times, and guys get on base, and the crowd gets loud. So slow the game down and just try to minimize things and just see the glove, not the hitter, and just slow it down and use those relaxed muscles to do what you've always been able to do and not let your head get in the way.
Slowing down the game, the league wouldn't be happy about that.
Yeah, not time wise, but mentally wise.
So now there's a question we've never actually asked on the podcast. So after a shortened season affected by baseball and a possibility that next season could be a duplicate, do you think there's a possibility for the MLB to actually expand so that more baseball happens?
Expand in what way?
Expand teams-wise.
How would that create more baseball?
Well, there would be more teams, which would create more fans. Because
I
whenever
haven't
there's a
heard
new
any.
team, there's always, like, in the city, there are more people who are like, wow, we're finally getting a team.
I mean, if you're going to shorten the season again, I mean, aren't you going to have fan capacity anyways? Because aren't they doing that from the get go this year?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, creating new teams is not an easy process. So I definitely don't see that happening in the short term. I mean, I don't know if they're thinking about that long term or not, but I don't see it happening within the next couple of years.
Well, yeah, that does make sense, I guess. But this brings me to my next question. If there was a regular season, assuming there was no COVID-19, which is completely hypothetical, do we need more teams?
In the MLB,
Yeah.
I think 30 is plenty. I mean, I'm in a league, my third year in a league with 4 teams, so I'll take 30 any day.
Okay, so here's my next question. So in the 2019 MLB season and a few others, uh, there were series played outside of, I guess, the team's homes, which is last year they played in Japan, Mexico, and the UK. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether the MLB should keep doing this or if they should stick to home and away stadiums.
I've never been a part of a team that's done that. I know NFL does that with London as well. I'm not sure if NBA does it, but I don't mind it. I mean, I think it's pretty cool. They go to other countries, and I mean, just the players experiencing those cultures, and a European vacation is one of my bucket list vacations. So if you had a chance to play over there and get paid while you're doing it, that's awesome. And then for those cities and those countries to be able to see MLB players up up close and personal is awesome. I know my dad went to the Orioles. They went to Japan and played, and he loved it. I know the fans out there loved it as well. So I don't mind that at all. I think it's pretty cool.
As a proudly owned Canadian business and podcast, we're happy to see you played with the Jays. Everyone who goes to Skydome, which is now called Rogers Center, or, well, yeah, it is, has a different impression. It's either the concrete convertible or, like, there's no opinion on it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the Rogers Center, I guess.
I mean, honestly, I loved every part about playing for that team. That city was awesome. The fans were awesome. The Rogers Center was just an impressive building, honestly. I think it was 22 minutes to open or close, which I think I learned that when I was in the bullpen killing time.
20. I thought it was 20, but
I think it's 22. I'm not positive though.
It's somewhere between the two.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was awesome experience. I still remember the day. In 2009, I was with Cincinnati, and we went and played in Toronto like 3 or 4 games, and I loved every part of it. The whole city, walking around, the experience, and then sure enough, that trade deadline came on the 31st of July, and I got called in from BP, and they said, "Hey, you've been traded to the Jays," and it was shocking at first, and then I realized where I was going, and I just got back from Toronto and loved it, so I was excited. I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking going to a new team, not really knowing anybody, but I have no complaints with that. Now, we didn't win much, but the people, the fans, the city, everything about that whole experience was awesome.
Yeah, when you're playing for the Jays, you're playing for a country, not a city. I don't play professional baseball, but I can only assume how great it is to see there are people like across a country, even a big one, land-wise, and then just seeing them cheer for you from so far away.
Yeah, I said the same. I said the same thing the last few years with. I was a big LeBron fan, and he'd go to Toronto and play, and it's tough games up there. And if you think about it, like you said, it's an entire country rooting for that Toronto basketball team, rather than in the United States you have cities rooting for guys, but you have an entire country, so it's got to be a hostile environment. It's a cool situation to have that country supporting you.
Well, yeah. So you mentioned that your league didn't really have to do much because there wasn't much COVID in Taiwan. You said, well, obviously there had to be something that the league had to take into account before starting. So, like, what were some of the precautions that you all had to take in order to have a reality at least?
They didn't have to do anything. I don't think. I mean, to this date, there's been like less than 500 cases total. I think 6 or 7 deaths in the entire time of the virus. So they didn't have to, but they kind of played copycat, and they saw other countries doing it, like the U.S. So they prolonged the league a little bit and pushed it back to April instead of March 15th, I think. And then we had a couple rules implemented with no spitting in the dugout, no seeds, no tobacco, no spitting on the mound, just no saliva going anywhere, and then masks during taxi or train or any public transportation or inside closed spaces, which that lasted for a little bit, but now it's kind of mask free and for the most part. But I mean, they're just being cautious. They did a great job with shutting down travel and the borders with cruise ships coming in or flights coming in. So I think being an island, it kind of helped, being isolated and not easy to get to. But they did a great job, and it was never really relevant here, and it was very fortunate to be here at the time and being the first baseball in the world.
Yeah, so we've been trying to use this part of our podcast, which is the last question, to explore more guest options. But you may have noticed, now this is talking to our community, you may have noticed a month's gap in our episodes because we did not get any guests. So thank you, Josh, for coming on because we've been slumping. So we do like to get our guests to nominate a few people that could possibly be on the podcast. So is there anyone you would nominate?
Nominate. I wonder, Scott Richmond, him at all? He could be a good one. He's from Canada. I played with him in Toronto. He played in the CPBL as well. So we have some ties there, and he's from Canada. So it'd be a good one to get his take. He's a funny dude, and he'd probably enjoy it.
Okay, well, yeah, that's great. So that's about it for this episode. Over 10,000 kilometers. Yes, we're over 10,000 kilometers apart. Thanks so much, Josh, for coming on the podcast, and I hope you stay safe. But more importantly, have a great season. Just kidding.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, and you guys stay safe out there.
To the community, we're growing more and more awesome people daily. Let's keep this going. Follow and share our social media. Instagram is Off the Bat Baseball, Twitter Off the Bat B-Ball, and YouTube is Off the Bat. Thanks, and have a great day.